Today on the Solar Podcast, trends in solar trackers and bifacial modules. I'm Tim Montague, your host. My guest today is Ryan Simpson, Head of Products and Marketing North America for Trina Solar. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks, Tim. Pleasure to be here. Honored to be here.
Well, it's heady days in the solar industry. We have a new administration in Washington. We're not going to talk or speculate too much about what's coming down the pike there, but it's probably only good news for the solar industry. But the really good news, of course, is that, the energy transition, we have the wind at our backs, and the pure economics are driving mass adoption of wind, solar, and storage, right? So Trina Solar is such a classy brand, and I'm biased because we've done quite a few Trina Solar projects, but you have some very innovative products that are coming into the market here in North America that we're going to talk about today. And we can also talk a lot about the solar industry at large because you are a true veteran. So where would you like to start? Would you like to talk about Trina products or talk about the industry?
Well, let me do a little plug for Trina, talk about the products here. So, some really exciting news going on right now with Trina and with newer products that are introduced not only in North America, but globally. So, long were the days where, a 200-watt module was the big module on the block. And it seems like, exponentially it's gotten bigger and bigger as far as wattage goes. And, our workhorse modules today have been 400 to 420 watts and outstanding products and everything, but everyone is starting to up their game and wanting to develop more strategic types of technology in that. And so, we've put our development work and money into a brand new product line called Vertex, which actually is between 500 and 600 watt modules that will be introduced here in about a year into North America. And, that's using a much more larger wafer, 210 millimeter wafer. And that allows us to not only increase the wattages, but also it allows us to extend the lifespan of that product line. So we can go well into 650 to 700 watts with that technology in coming years. So it's something that really is going to differentiate the utility side of the market here in North America. And I have to tell you, there's many customers that have been asking for this type of product in the marketplace. And I'm very excited about trying out the new Trina products. So we have that coupled with, we have our own Trina tracker, which is a very top of the line tracking system that pairs well with the bifacial products that we have that we've introduced. And bifacial has really caught a lot of wind behind its back and been highly accepted throughout the marketplace now. So it's definitely becoming more the norm than the exception. I would say that the majority, close to 75% of our products now that we're selling into the US are bifacial. And so we have a very long history there where we have researched it for 5 or 6 years, done a lot of testing behind it, and we feel very confident about our bifacial products and how they will impact the North American market in a positive way.
Absolutely. We've started to see bifacial modules coming in here in the community solar market here in Illinois. And I was excited to learn about your tracker solution. I'm sharing my screen now so our audience can see that website. If you just Google Trina Pro, one word, you'll find this website. And what's the story? I want to spend some time on the bifacial modules, but let's take a tour or a detour into the tracker. Tell us the tracker story.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that Trina feels very passionate about is being able to offer high quality modules, but also in many high quality solutions as well. And so we made the decision a few years ago to get into the whole system solution business, and that was with acquiring a company called Enclave, which was one of the top Spanish tracker companies in the world. And so we did an evolution of acquiring them and working with them and doing some extensive product development work with them. One of the differentiators with this is, depending on, your elevation, if you've got rocky elevations, you can see there in the pictures, or very flat land, Enclave system, which is now the Trina tracker system, allowed you different types of tracker technology to incorporate into the different topologies that are there. So for example, if you had both flat and rocky types of terrains, you could utilize this, and we fully design it in-house, custom for any types of application out there. So that's one of the sweet spots of this Trina Pro system, is the ability to be so adaptable and flexible with whatever the terrains might be and the environmental conditions.
Yep. The every tracker is slightly different, and here in Illinois, we're blessed with very flat ground, but of course there's many places in the US where that's not the case. And so having a tracker that's got some flexibility in terms of string length and row length makes a big difference. Is that product shipping in North America now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've been shipping for the last 2 years. We have some 100 megawatt type projects already in place, and a bunch of new projects that are coming in all throughout, the Carolinas, and looking at Texas and other places. So we're certainly full scale with that, and have a whole sales and marketing and technical team behind it here in North America.
Wonderful. And then we have the advent of bifacial modules. What was the ratio of bifacial to monofacial you said was shipping now in the United States?
If you look at any of the research houses, they'll have anywhere between 50 and 75% is now bifacial. I can tell you from a Trina standpoint, we're shipping close to 70% of everything that we bring in is bifacial. It's certainly caught not only the EPCs and developers' eyes, but also the investor side, of the business. And so it's definitely, they see a lot of advantages and opportunities with that. It carries, most modules carry a traditional 25-year power warranty, and this bifacial modules carry a 30-year power warranty, which, allows for a little bit extra, production and equity opportunities, with the projects.
And what is the difference between Vertex backsheet and Vertex bifacial?
So we still make a monofacial product, meaning like it's a module that comes with a backsheet. There are still some places where monofacial still lends itself to having a backsheet, and there are areas where you may want to fix tilt with a backsheet. And there's some customers that haven't fully adopted or want to be a part of the bifacial movement at this point. So you will still have some customers, especially in C&I, that will gravitate more towards the monofacial, especially in residential as well. But yeah, that's really the difference there, between the two products.
Got it. And when you think about trackers and bifacial modules, that combination, what is the bump in productivity? Just a rule of thumb that you're using.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've done a lot of different case studies, both here in North America and globally, and it all depends on where in the country the latitude is, the amount of radiance and everything, and also there's a design factor of how high off the ground you have it. So you have then a better spectrum of light that can bounce off the ground and onto the backside of the module. And then of course you have your albedo effect. You might have a grass or a dirt or snow or whatever the reflection point might be on the backside will make a considerable impact. So rule of thumb, we've been seeing between on average between 9 and 13% additional energy gain from the backside. And that's a real conservative number. In some cases, you get up to 20%, but it's a good rule of thumb. Somewhere in the 10-12% range is a very fair amount to expect from the backside.
Gotcha. So that's on top of the 10 to 15% you're getting with the tracker.
That's right. And of course, the front side, of course, is the lion's share of the production as well. So yes, you're
Sure.
definitely when you're looking at your LCOEs, it's the payback period and the IRR is very good, you know, and that's where I said the investment community really gets behind it, because it strengthens the financial portfolio of a project, and it also payback is a lot quicker as a result.
Yep. It's all about long-term cost of energy, or lower cost of energy.
Yeah.
LCOE.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, I had another question about trackers. You know, it seems like software is playing a bigger and bigger role in the racking world. An example, of course, is Nextracker. They're really hyping their tracking software. And then even in the fixed tilt racking world, we have PanelClaw with their Claw OS software for permitting and engineering. Tell us a little bit about Trina's approach to technology.
Yeah, so we are certainly adapting different types of controllers and devices to work with SCADA and other types of measures with the tracker. It also, you know, we have some good partnerships with some inverter companies as well, which helps in analyzing and getting the sweet spot as far as the tracking mobility and getting every ounce of efficiency out of the tracker. So we have some new, and they're really being developed right now and tested out in a few different parts of the region, but they are coming to North America soon. But they are really hands-on types of analytics, and there's different types of analysis that within the tracker there'll be types of optics that will help in looking at, you know, what is the best sweet spot, how to manage the whole string better, how to get a little bit more of the IV curve as far as the production and that. So they are, you know, we have a deep technology team, R&D team, that's doing this analysis. I have to say Nextracker and ATI are the top two tracker companies. They do a phenomenal job in this area as well. And you know, I think you know, we're trying to be you know, on that level as well, and offer those types of solutions for customers so that they can sit back at a control room and be able to really understand, you know, why the tracker reacts in a certain way to different environmental conditions, and how it really can increase its ability to produce more energy. And so it's becoming very much a science, you know, behind it all. It used to be just you put it out there and it tracks the sun and that's it. But you know, there's a lot more metrics to it now, especially with inverter partners and looking at that, and then of course, you know, down the road, everyone will be coupling it with storage, and that will be important in how that all plays as far as those types of switches and levers go.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, all of these manufacturers, if you're not a software company today, you're going to be in 10 years. If you're going to be in business, it's such an important part. Leveraging things like artificial intelligence, tracking lends itself to that world, right? So that you can do smart tracking and really capture the most energy under different environmental conditions. Let's talk about module footprint, because we had PVEL's Tristan Arian Lorico on the Clean Power Hour the other day, and John Weaver and he were talking about, you know, the onslaught of very large wattage modules, which Trina is very much front and center in. And these modules are getting physically bigger, right? The cell you mentioned
Yep.
is getting bigger, and the actual footprint of the panel is getting bigger. and it's a little bit of the Wild West. What are your thoughts about this, and where's this going?
Well, it's certainly something that I guess I equate it a little bit more to the you look at how TVs or flat screen TVs have been made. Years ago, a 36-inch, 40-inch was good enough, but I think as people get more adapted into a product, they want to see a little bit better, enhancements to it, and that's been really kind of the driving force and the voice of customer that we've received in looking at the ability to make larger footprint, higher density type of products that can share a space and actually create more energy in that density of that space. And so that's where we've come a long way. Like I said before, we used to everyone used to make a 200 watt, 300 watt module, and that was big. And now we're at 400, and now we're looking at the 550 to 600 watt range, and part of that has to do with there are utilities projects that have huge amounts of land that they can fill up, and so this helps in kind of utilizing that land to the best of its ability, and you're capturing more of that surface area from the sun and everything else. We're working with PVAL very closely. In fact, we have our newest Vertex modules just recently sent to them, and they're already starting on their PQP testing, which is their extended reliability testing of our products. And I have to tell you, I know Tristan very well, and we kind of force them to really evaluate this because of the size of the modules. Their chambers can allow only so much in that, so they've had to kind of do some upgrades as well as more and more of these modules become more pertinent in the marketplace as far as the size and everything. So it's something that I don't know if it's going to get much bigger than this, to be quite honest, because you're pushing up against certain installation methods of how many people do you use. Is it 2 people, 3 people to install? How is it lift? Also, how is it shipped? We're also looking at the logistics side of things. You only fit so much on a pallet from a weight standpoint, and so much in a container as well. And so there's certain standards that are in place today, even from the trucking industry. They only allow so much weight to be carried in that, so we have to take that into account as well. So there's a very fine science to how much you can really go, and how much bigger and how much heavier and everything else you can make a module. And so I think we're approaching that kind of that nexus of the peak of where we can probably go with things. And that's one of the reasons why we looked at the 210 millimeter type of cell technology as opposed to a 180 83 182 millimeter cell, is because we can extend that product line much farther through through its lineage, and not have to expand the actual characteristics of the module footprint. So it becomes a kind of almost a trial and error in looking at what's going to be the most popular, what's going to work with customers the best. And we've done a lot of homework on this and looking at it before we got invested into doing this size of module. So in fact, just early this year, because it's been such a gold rush to get to this size of module, we were one of the first, if not the first, to introduce that we're coming out with a 500 watt module. Well, that spawned the rest of the industry to kind of try to catch up to us. And then we just relaunched, like I said, the Vertex, getting into the 550 and 600 watt module. So it's something that we've done a lot of homework with our customers, with our technology partners, component suppliers, because just because you put a 500 watt module or 600 watt module, you have to make sure there's other BOS that actually can support it as well. And that also is working with key inverter suppliers, making sure that it can line up correctly with the design and that, and obviously, tracker and racking partners. So.
Cool. Do you know the dimensions of these 550 watt modules that are going to hit next year about this time, if I recall correctly?
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I believe it's about 1,100 millimeters by 2,300 millimeters. I don't have that in inches off the top of my head, but that's typically the size. So what does that mean? If you compare it to our current products, that means it gets a little bit wider by about an inch or so, and it extends it out longer by about 10 or 11 inches. So it's really getting longer as opposed to wider. So that helps in the design aspect as far as putting modules on a tracker or a racking system and that. And then you're just looking at whether you're doing one portrait or two landscape or however you're going to mount it, right? So so everything's really getting a little bit longer as opposed to wider.
Cool. Yeah, I'm keen to see how this plays out. Numerous manufacturers have announced, I think, 700 plus watt modules. Now, whether they'll be shipping in 2021 or not is another question, right? But there does seem to be a bit of an arms race going on, and um, that is just the way capitalism is sometimes. So we've got to let that run its course, perhaps. I was asking Tristan, so is there a body that all of the module makers, are member to, where this gets really discussed and bandied about, and agreements are made? Because you mentioned, the dimensions for shipping and logistics. There's the logistics on the ground, of course, with, having to crane and forklift this stuff up to the roof or out to the field. Um, yeah, how do the manufacturers coordinate?
Yeah, so there is a consortium among the top tier one manufacturers. Trina is a tier one manufacturer, and so there's probably about 20 or so different technology providers. Some are modules, some are component suppliers, some are inverters, racking, and what they do is they kind of come together to discuss these items, because you can't make one without the other. Meaning, like, you have to have a proper junction box for a module. So you have to talk to the junction box providers. You have to make sure that, if you make a product module, it's going to be able to withstand the normal wind and snow loads and things like that. So you have to work with them. So there's a consortium of different players, and some of them are competitors, and a lot of them are component suppliers, and we are very open in the development process, and looking at that, because there is, like anything else, like you say in capitalism, there's buying power, right? So if you have enough companies that want to go after certain types of products, and they're going to utilize different sources of these, you want to be able to make sure you have the right means for it as well. I mean, it very, very much like, if you remember a few years ago when no one knew anything about 1,000-volt product, right? And then it all of a sudden we went from 600 to 1,000-volt. There weren't a lot of different component suppliers for combiner boxes and fusing and things like that could support that. And so, and then there was a jump from 1,000-volt to 1,500-volt, and so it's what we've learned through our history in the last 15 to 20 years of solar, both North America and globally, is you have to kind of latch on to some of these bigger suppliers, and that way you can kind of have a all-encompassed type of product that is supported all the way through the supply chain. And so that in a sense is something I think that the key tier one manufacturers have learned through the years, is that they don't want to be able to, it's one thing to say, oh, I have a 700-watt module, but there isn't the components and the different types of supply chain to support that, or a factory to build it, right? And I think some some competitors will boast about, vaporware, in my opinion, of products that may or may not exist in the future. And I think, working hand in hand with a little bit more grounded type of suppliers and other competitors makes a little more sense in doing that. And so this, I can get you the name after this, but there is a consortium that is in place and has been for a good couple of years now in this types of development work for global modules and that. But
I just did the math on that 1100 by 2300 millimeter module. That's 3.6 feet by 7.54 feet. And my mantra is go for a 4 by 8 foot footprint. So you're well on your way to that. And that's the dimensions of a sheet of plywood or a sheet of dry rock. So our our logistics infrastructure is very well set up for that footprint. And so that's all good.
yeah,
And
that's good.
I'm not too freaked out by that. I mean, I'm looking forward to the day when we have 1 kW solar modules. How far away is that day, do you think?
Well, it's there's no quantum leaps like in technology. There'd have to be a newer type of technology that could give us better efficiencies in that. There are certain limitations, as you know, from just a solar module, just the physics and everything of it. But I would say it's probably another 4 to 5 years away before we're starting to approach those types of numbers. You get to, I think it's like 750 watts or that's equivalent to 1 horsepower. So our goal is to get to 1 horsepower, I think, at this point. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought, right, a year ago even, that we would be talking about a 600 watt module when the workhorse for most everyone was 400 to 420. And so it changes. I'd say that N-type cells versus P-type cells, that can add to it, that can help with it. Different types of doping procedures, different ways to cut the cells, create the cells, the wafers. It's all in the works right now at this point. It's very deep R&D types of projects and trial and errors and things like that. And then also, even though you come out with these high efficiency or high wattage modules, you have to figure out from a manufacturer how to actually manufacture these products on a line, because you're limited by whatever the technology might be as far as the automation there.
Yeah, of course. Can we talk a little bit about R&D? I'm curious. I notice in the battery world that there's a very strong tie-in with academia, with lithium ion technology. Is that the case with solar PV?
One of the things we have is we have a state-run connected research and development lab. It's a science lab. There is an academia type of element to it. We actually have of all things, at Trina University, where people can come and learn, and we can teach ourselves and develop and everything. And so you'll see that with more of the higher level technology companies. I think if you even looked at like an Intel or a Oracle or someone like that, they're going to have a very similar, kind of setup as well, because they're trying to learn from themselves. And so this is something that is part of the academia type of community as well. Is you want you want some other eyeballs, some other third party to really look at it, help you analyze things, because if you're always cooking your own recipe, you never know if you have all the right ingredients. So it's good to have a different viewpoint sometimes in helping in to develop these these newer products. I would say that modules are there's different things you can do with them, especially with the bifacial side of things. We are looking at how to increase and get better production out of the backside of the product. We're thinking about ways to increase the light that comes through the module, so it has more of that reflection element to it. There's just different trial and errors. We have a lot of different products that sit in different fields and going through a lot of testing and that to try to get there. And so it's one of the things we do use academia too they have labs as well, and they have fields, and they have places that they can help us in this research. And so we do it here, even in North America. We have some PV universities that we use. There's obviously NREL and others that we work with in development, as in our area. So yeah, I think it's an important part of it, and it's going to continue to be.
Good stuff. I as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we do have a new administration coming into DC, so we'd be remiss if we didn't touch a little bit on the potential for the tariff situation. What do you hear on the street about the possibilities for a Democratic administration and how they'll view product coming out of China and other Asian countries?
It's probably going to be a little more accepted, let's say, from the Biden administration. There's obviously a little more passion there when it comes to renewables and comes from products. I sit on the ITC Trade Council board for SEIA, and so we talk about a lot of these tariffs and things that are happening. Much of it really, doesn't have to do as much with the president as it does with the trade council that's in place. And so there is obviously some push on tariffs to try to, any kind of imports that come in and that from China and other places. And so it does make it a little more difficult, with some of the the extra costs and that. But I think with a new administration, there's going to be at least a little bit more openness to this, and to the opportunities, of working with them in trying to come up with not only better ways to import, but also better ways to do technology in that. So I welcome it in that. I just, with anything else though, it's just policy and different types of legislature that gets in place. One of the things I think we're trying to push hard right now is getting the ITC extended. It has this drop down effect in the next couple of years. And so that's really one of the main things we're trying to do, is get it extended out to 2028 or 29 at that full 30%. And so that's very important, just as much as some of the trying to remove some of the tariffs in that. So right now we have a bifacial tariff exemption, and it's going through a lot of different motions right now. And but ultimately, that's part of what's called a Section 201 tariff plan that started a couple years ago, and it will end February 7th, 2022. So one of the things I can say probably is that won't get extended with a new administration, because there is that risk that specific tariff could get extended. So I think there's a lot of just uncertainty in that area, and I think we'll know more here in the next couple of months of how it's all going to play out and how it'll affect different projects. And from CNI to utilities, some projects get pushed out because of the drop downs in different tariffs, or the in ITC and that. So I think
How big is the current tariff on monofacial modules? Is it a penny a watt? Is it more?
well, it's right now it's sitting at 20% tariff. That's a Section 201 tariff.
Okay.
So anything you bring in, depending on what the intrinsic cost of bringing it in, then you tack on another 20%. Now that will drop down to 15% on February 7th, 2021. And so, and then, like I said, that Section 201 tariff will be gone by the February 7th of 2022. And so there you have that, and then you have an AVCVD type of tariff that hits everyone anyway for any products and that. So it's something that it's eventually going away, and I think that will help in the marketability, the LCOEs, everything else, and so it's we're almost there. It's we could probably do a whole show just on tariffs and why they came about, and why they're there, and who put them there, and everything else. But
Yeah.
it's
Well, at 20%, shame on me for not having these figures in my head, but that's more like a nickel a watt. And
mhm.
so those tariffs are significant. And You know, I am no economist, but based on all of what I see in the market, I just don't see that tariffs are A, good for the United States, and B, good for the industry, or good for the energy transition. There are things that we need to tax, absolutely, and things that maybe we need to tax differentially. I'm open to that, but given, my understanding is that China went hard after the clean room technology starting in the 70s that you need to develop a PV industry. And the United States, while we do have a semiconductor industry in the United States, it has been shrinking, not growing.
Hmm.
And of course, NAFTA didn't probably help that, but anyway, it's a global industry. Humanity is a global species. I just think we need to start behaving like we're all on the same team, for goodness sake,
Yep.
and start to focus on some bigger problems like climate change, the existential threats of AI and asteroids, and space-based solar is going to be a big thing eventually.
Hmm.
There was a story out of the UK about that recently. China has a plan to launch a space-based solar array, just a pure solar plant to beam energy back to Earth with microwaves. And the cool thing about space-based solar is you get 40 times the productivity because there's no atmosphere, and you can potentially position the panels so they're getting sunlight 24/7.
Sure.
Um, but anyway, I digress. So, in the last couple of minutes we have, Ryan, what would you like our listeners to know about what's coming up with Trina? I mean, you already have a wonderful brand. It's so cool to see you going after that vertical of racking as well as modules. And then you didn't mention, who are you partnered with on inverters anyway?
Well, we have a couple different partners. We have SunGrow and SMA and Power Electronics and that. So I mean, they're some of the bigger central type of inverter companies that are have a lot of experience and know-how. I spent half my career in inverters, so I can say that those are very not only popular but very reliable and good companies to partner with. I'm not trying to do a plug for them. I just thinking agnostically that if I was going to do a development project, those are be some of the ones that I would take a look at first, before I did anything else. So that's just me.
So what else is on your mind about the North American market? What keeps you up at night? What are you excited about, and what are the challenges ahead?
I'm incredibly excited about the fact that United States, North America is going to continue to grow, right, for the next 5 years. There is, we're going to be approaching 20 gigawatts of opportunity here, probably by next year, and it's going to grow, especially if we get the ITC extended. We're looking at 28, 29, even 30 gigawatts of potential opportunity each year here, which puts us, right there as number. Right now, we're number 3 in the world. We could get to number 2, very easily. And so, what does that mean? That the excitability is that we're going to have a long road with solar, in North America. This is not a little sideshow or something that is, small in nature. This is a real industry, a real growth industry, and real opportunity to make an impact, not only, with our company growth, but also, like you're saying, getting everyone on the same page so that we're all, united when it comes to, the energy sector, and looking at how to, get rid of some of these coal plants, get rid of some of these things that are environmentally, they worked in the 1800s, but let's get into the 2000s here already, and let's be a little bit more smarter about it. So that's something that I'm excited about, the growth patterns, and just where technology is going to go. And you see some of these bigger companies like Google and Amazon and that they're really getting into this as well. And that's going to be fun too, to work with, these very large companies, because they have a presence and people admire those brands. And so I think there's a real good opportunity there to align the vectors, so to speak, and really get the promise out there of where we're going to be. This dovetails into electric vehicles and storage and all sorts of things, right? It gives it a little bit more mainstream ability for us to all accept.
Indeed. You mentioned the growth opportunity in North America, and I think that's a wonderful note to close on. My podcasting partner, John Weaver, we do a show called the Clean Power Hour, has a wonderful blog post. Check him out, commercialsolarguy.com. And but he talks about what's possible under the Biden administration. Here we are in 2020. We're going to do maybe 18 gigawatts of solar. Well, we're going to ramp solar potentially by a factor of 10 by 2035. And what that means is by 2025, we'll be doing over 30 gigawatts a year. By 2030, we'll be doing 58 gigawatts a year. And by 2035, 105 gigawatts a year, for a total of 800 gigawatts of solar. So this is going to be a rocket ship ride. I tell all my friends and colleagues and my children, get into the energy industry, get into renewables. It's the cheapest form of clean new energy on the grid. We are making the energy transition happen. And no matter your interest, engineering, marketing, sales, business development, et cetera, right? Project management, construction, anything you want to do, you can do that in solar. I get off my horse now. So Ryan, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I do want to make one quick announcement for my audience, and that is to check out all of our content at cesnrg.com/videos. And we're doing 2 of these interviews a week with solar experts like Ryan Simpson from Trina Solar. And our most recent interviews were Joe Covington with IMO Fire Raptor, talking about solar safety and rapid shutdown. Here you see the Clean Power Hour with myself and John Weaver. We did a session on floating solar, wonderful topic, huge growth potential in floating solar in the United States, and on and on. Here we have Micah Sussman of New Resource Solutions talking about solar PPAs. So check out cesnrg.com/videos. And then we also do pre-announced, pre-registered events. You can find those at cesnrg.com/podcast. So with that, I will leave you. Thank you again, Ryan Simpson with Trina Solar. Really fun talking to you. I look forward to seeing these really ginormous modules come into North America next year.
Great, Tim. Thank you again for having me on here. It was a pleasure. Anytime.
Have a great day, Ryan.
Thanks, you too. Appreciate it.